Hi everyone, this is Melissa, and I'm just going to give a brief reflection on my infographic project. So for this project, I was having a lot of trouble deciding between a topic, and I was going back and forth between two topics, between like my internship experience at UCSB and throughout my college career, and then another one with just how many hours I spend getting ready, like in the morning and before events and things like that. But I wasn't really in love with either one of them. And I kept on going back to Pinterest for like the site for inspiration, and I always go there just to browse and find myself getting inspired in different ways. And it just occurred to me, why don't I just track how much time I spend on Pinterest? So that's how I came up with my topic. And I tracked my time and um, how much time on my laptop and on my phone I went onto Pinterest over 2 weeks. And shown here are just three of my drafts. My first draft is on the far left, and the middle is my second, and then the far right is my third draft. So I took a really literal approach with using a cork board and pins and actually physically pinning things to like a pin board for this project, just because I wanted to give a really obvious message to people who don't know what Pinterest is. And then from there, in my first draft, pinned a lot of pictures and things that I pin and use the actual screenshot of what your profile looks like, where it has my name and pinner since 2012 and all that information, and use a sticky note with a bunch of different fonts for how many boards I have. And this pie chart kind of reflects my boards again with how much I pin on each board. So at first, I thought that my infographic was really busy, and I kind of expanded it to give it more room, and then I still had to add how many hours I spent a week. So I did that, and I went kind of a different direction, and I don't think it was the right direction for my second draft, where I just put the average hours of pinning per week straight on the board. I was still planning on putting a post-it or a paper underneath it, but it just was there for my draft, and I think the icons and stuff didn't really fit with the rest of the vibe of the design. So I went in a different approach for my last draft, and I cleared out a lot of the clutter between all the pictures and the different fonts and the pie chart just directly on the corkboard, and went for a more literal approach with things being taped like this picture of me instead of having a screenshot of the Pinterest profile. And I made it into a Polaroid and had my name on there, and did a lot of the post-it notes and added some post-it flags just to add some variety of how I would pin things, and put the pie chart on like a graph, a pile of scrap graph paper, and use more scraps of paper to use for information like when I pin, and kept consistent with the post-it notes, and made the icons that I thought kind of didn't fit well into, I used like the pencil tool on Photoshop and the masking tool, and went ahead and like filled in the icons to make them look like pencil shavings, just like I kind of drew it on a post-it note, as well as the shading in the bars with like the 88% and the 12%, and made my tracking of hours into like a calendar, and just highlighted that at the bottom, just to go from a more general, like how many pins I've done in a whole year, to more specific, how many hours I spent in just 2 weeks. So those are my thoughts, and I just added this last part, this last edition, the first place ribbon, just to give it a creative way to display like my first pin, first recipe, and first project made that would make sense to be pinned on a board. So I used that ribbon there. For my last one, my last draft, I really wanted it to be more clean and less busy. Even though it is a cork board, I still wanted to keep with the elements of design and keep with alignment and repetition with the post-it notes, but also adding some variety. So since I couldn't really do like a grid or like a streamline that leads the viewer all the way down through my infographic, I just kind of did it with the alignment, like starting with this first. Since we read left to right, I just wanted to start with like the more general stuff first, and kind of lead your eye down in kind of like a snake type of way until you got down to the very specific hours I pinned per week. And I thought that I did the alignment fairly well to balance out with a busy, cluttered board versus, a minimal board that doesn't look so natural. So I thought I kind of balanced it out pretty well. And I felt that I used repetition pretty well with the pins and the scraps of paper. Things that I feel like I could improve on is definitely making the numbers of my information on my data stand out a little more. I know like when you zoom out this way, it's hard to see like the percentages of most pinned, and like my laptop percentages are kind of small, especially like this at the bottom is pretty small, whereas like in the year and pages one, I thought that um, designer did really well with highlighting just big bold numbers that led your eye directly to data, and I think that I could have used that to improve my infographic, as well as making like the title maybe a little bigger. I liked my first draft that it was really clear what my title was, and then when I switched it to a year in pins, because I was tracking more of like my whole year since I started pinning, um, I think it was just got too crowded. But things that I learned from this is that minimalism is really hard to achieve, and I know that I tried to edit out a lot of my images and a lot of the things that weren't really necessary on my infographic, even though I wanted it to look like a busy pinboard. So in the future, I want to get into marketing, so I know that advertising is right along those lines. And if I ever had to help with a creative team with an advertisement, I know that practicing how to do minimal design would be really useful, because I feel like sometimes big bold numbers and minimal ads and minimal, billboards speak louder than something that's trying to do too much. So that is my reflection. Thanks for watching.